In our last video, we celebrated the work of the permanent way teams who closed the gap in the track on the afternoon of June 28th. Of course, track laying is only one aspect of what goes on at Shillingstone Station. Inside the Perkins building we find an old lamp hut, now with a fresh coat of paint. Work continues on the brake van, destined to carry passengers when the railway goes operational. The adjacent trailway attracts all sorts, although a drove of donkeys was rather unusual. Maybe we get a mule train next. Work continues in the general utility van on the up platform. Volunteer Peter Wedlake gives us an update.
We've got some water coming in there on that wall there, so we've removed the insulation, taken the new wall panel down, and we're doing a water test to discover where the rainwater is coming in.
I came here for about a year when we just moved into the area, and I just loved coming and watching what was going on. I thought, why don't I just become a volunteer and help? So I did, and I've been coming ever since, which is great fun.
During the morning, a crew of volunteers moved the old lamp hut to its new home on the down platform. Over at Project 62's loco, the steam dome top plate had been removed once more, as it still was not sealing correctly. Polishing and cleaning up was needed before it's refitted for a future steam test.
If we can do that, then we'll be on track for next Wednesday.
On June 7th, volunteers repaired a fence, and work had been completed on the support base at the new location for the Binnegar Crane. So, what's the Binnegar Crane? Binnegar was a station on the Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway between Radstock and Shepton Mallet, and the crane was used to transfer barrels of beer from the narrow gauge railway of the nearby Oak Hill Brewery to mainline wagons until 1921. The crane was rescued by the Somerset and Dorset Railway Trust and came to Shillingstone in 2023. Volunteers, including pupils from Claysmore School, took on the refurbishment. The crane was stored and emerged into the light ready to be erected on a platform at the station on June the 9th. Access was difficult, and it was not until the morning of the 10th, after a fence had been removed, that the crane was ready to be fixed in place. On June the 11th, ballasting continued on the north siding. In the Perkins building, publicity volunteer Hilary Daniels was given a tour of the brake van by Rob Wyatt.
So the bit behind you is a fixed seat. The others are going to be hinged so they can hide lamps and bits and pieces. We're nearly there with the glass. We won't be using all these holes. I'm going to make up what in effect looks like a picture frame so that we can put the perspex in and then sandwich it up against the inside of that. The idea is that instead of caulking the gaps like these, we're going to put thin ply over the top going that way,
Right.
and then there'll be two sheets of something or other which go up there. We haven't decided quite yet. Yeah, it's gone really well considering what we had to begin with, which was just the chassis. That's how it came in here, just the bare chassis. And then we put everything together on the floor, took it all apart, and then started building it up here. October 22 we started working on the timbers, but before that I think I've been here just over 3 years now, but they'd done all the work on the chassis. They had to knock out all the concrete which was here, replace all the steel plates, so this will be concreted again.
Up at Project 62, everyone was hopeful for a successful steam test.
Today we're doing a further steam test, following the last test. where we identified a number of issues. They've all been resolved. We had a leak around the top of the steam dome, so we've taken that off and annealed the gasket, resealed that, so hopefully that's resolved. We had leaks from 2 or 3 valves when we got up to 150 psi, so they've been taken off and refurbished. All goes to plan. Later on today we hope we can get up to full boiler pressure at 200 psi. And that'll be the first time since 2010 that we will have achieved that goal.
By the afternoon, boiler pressure had risen to 200 psi and the first safety valve had blown off, as planned. Despite this, it was found that the steam dome top plate was still leaking and it was removed again for machining. There's always something to do at the station. On June 25th, BBC South reporter Brian E. Leyland came to report on our progress. Operations manager Phil Jakes filled in some background.
There's a permissive path that runs across the track at the end of the yard. So they're having to rebuild a crossing, which is quite tricky. That would be worth looking at, I would think.
Yeah.
When cameraman Daniel Jojo arrived, the permanent way team were covered in detail. Before Daniel launched a BBC drone for a bit of an overview. Later, Brian interviewed Gavin Collins. Daniel persuaded the Hudswell drivers to make a couple of runs. Finally, Brian did her piece to camera, and we look forward to seeing the reports in September. Down at Project 62, work continues, and on June 25th, young volunteer Joe was sweeping out the smoke box. There was a hope that the loco would be fit to fire up and move a few yards in the coming week. To clear the upline, the axle boxes on the rolling stock were checked and lubricated prior to moving the stock of wagons onto the north siding on the following Saturday. On June 28th, Hudswell Diesel coupled up to the wagons and shunted them onto the north siding to hopefully allow for 30075 to move on the following Wednesday. And, as we saw in the last video, this was the day when the track extension was finally joined up with the station.
Yay! Well done, guys!
Now the track extension is complete, a wheeled vehicle, in this case a trolley, can be put to use by the permanent way teams. On July the 2nd, a working party headed north of the track extension. On July 16th, there was a Q&A session for volunteers in the Perkins building. Chairman Gavin Collins thanked the permanent way team for their work and outlined upcoming tasks at the station.
It's really the start of the next phase, so I keep getting asked questions about when we're actually going to be running trains over it. But we've still got a lot of things to do, not least of which we need to get the ORR at some point to come and inspect it and, in whatever way they do, sign it off. To get the ORR here, we've got a lot of paperwork that we need to sort out and get up to date. And we need to make sure that when the ORR come, what they see is a railway that's ready to go operational.
Outside, after a few false starts, the Wickham trolley crew got the engine running and entertained visitors with a few runs. Project 62's loco, 30075, was steamed again, but when boiler pressure reached 120 psi, the joint between the right-hand clack valve and the water feed pipe blew a gasket. So the fire was dropped and the steam test terminated. It was also noted that a stay on the bottom right-hand side of the backhead had leaked. We'll have to wait a bit longer for the loco movement we'd hoped for. On July 23rd, the station prepared to welcome an unusual visitor, a vintage Somerset and Dorset coach body belonging to the Somerset and Dorset Railway Trust. It had been hiding in the back garden of a bungalow in Cannington near Bridgewater, having been earlier used as a changing room at a tennis club. Outside contractors used a 100-ton crane to carefully lift the body onto a low loader and to deliver it to Shillingstone Station later in the day. We'll be looking after it until the Railway Trust are able to start restoration. Mel Marshman from the Somerset and Dorset Railway Trust takes stock of the new acquisition. On July 30th, maintenance work continued at the station, on the track, on the diesel loco, and on the general utility fan. And today was the day when the Project 62 group really thought they'd get the loco moving at last. Unfortunately, fate intervened, and neither a driver or fireman was available. However, steam specialist Richard Vincent was on hand and fixed the leaking bankhead stay. Eventually, boiler pressure reached 195 psi, at which point the first safety valve lifted, as planned. Previous leaking joints had been repaired, and this turned out to be a successful day for Project 62. It's been an exciting year so far for the North Dorset Railway, and there's more to look forward to.